This is awesome. Can you guys see from over there?
Yeah.
Okay. I know this projector, this is like they got a little pocket projector, so I know you can't see very well. I'll try not to use this as much. And because we're small, I definitely want to maximize, like, getting whatever I'm talking about that is most important. Please, like, if you want me to stop, we can have a deeper conversation than how I've sort of presented this. Here's how this is going to go. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do. Has anybody heard of Up2Us Sports before? Perfect. Great. So I'm just going to give a quick rundown of who we are, what we do, and then I'm going to dive into sort of the foundation of why it is we do what we do, talk about sports-based youth development and competition, and then at the very end, if we have time, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the coaching strategies we talk about. Is anyone coaching here? Anybody interested in coaching? Anybody work with coaches? Great. Perfect. Great. So again, if what I'm talking about, if there's something interesting or there's something you want to hear more about, this is content that we do for 4 days. So we've got 36 hours of content. I could go into detail on any of these items I'm talking about. And since you're here, you should ask me if you want me to. So let me just tell you quickly about who we are. We're a national nonprofit. We are the biggest and first organization to use public service to impact sports. So is anyone familiar with AmeriCorps? So AmeriCorps is it's like domestic Peace Corps. So it's funded through the government. You get a stipend, and you're essentially a paid volunteer for a year. So we have right now our coach program. We've got roughly 350 coaches across the country. So we're in about 20 cities with 10 offices. So we have an office here. This is my colleague Brian. He's our program director here in Seattle. And then we're in 9 other cities across the country. So we're in Oakland, LA, New Orleans, Chicago, Miami, Baltimore, Philly, and New York. So our administrative offices are actually in New York City, is where we were founded. So our coach programs, the biggest thing we do, we manage and train for roughly 400 coaches a year, serving all across the country. Most of them serve in like community-based organizations, in schools, or in parks and rec departments. We also train coaches. So we do a non-sport specific coach training. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that when I'm done here. But we focus on how to use youth development in sports and how to actually maximize sport uniquely to positively impact young people's lives. And then we work with sports organizations across the country also. So we do data collection and monitoring, evaluation, and support organizations who are trying to build sport as a healthy tool for youth development. We work with a bunch of partners across the country. We actually, if you look for us, if you want to follow us on social media, in the next couple weeks, we'll be rolling out an online curriculum with Adidas all around coaching girls, which we're really excited about. I don't even know if I'm supposed to be telling you that right now, but I am. So it's coming. You can look for it. Follow us on Twitter. And what I was asked to do today is to talk about why sports-based youth development is important, and sort of and present a little bit about the foundation around why we do what we do. So in order to do that, since this is also a networking conference, what I want you to do is I want you to think about the most important thing sports has taught you. So what is the biggest lesson or the most important thing you have learned from sports? Then I want you to whittle that lesson down to like one word. So for example, I played a bunch of sports growing up. I played softball in college. If I was thinking about one word, I would say trust, because I played softball and it relies on you making really quick in the moment decisions. And because of the nature of that sport, I learned to trust my own judgment and trust my own decisions. That's, in my opinion, one of the most important things sport has taught me as a human. All right, so I want you to think about What's the most important thing sport has taught you? Whittle that into one word, and then you're gonna have to stand up and you've got to tell that to one person. All right, you're gonna tell the word, introduce to yourself if you don't know them. Tell the word and talk about why you chose that word. But it's gonna require you to stand up and move. All right, go. Great. Hi, I'm Adrienne. Hi, Rosie. How's it going? Good. Yeah. Is that y'all are all from Yale? Okay, that's so cool. So you came up together. I do. I played softball. Actually, in Western. A girl who. Yeah. So yeah,
I wrote it down too was most people say you don't have something to work with.
I probably would.
Yeah, you gotta work at least to have something there, so at least you know where to improve, what to do. So you have some progress. Because eventually you
Okay, cool. And do you have a like?
I would say perfection. I didn't learn that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's hard. It's totally different. It's a different world. Or it looks different, I suppose, than before.
Well, that's the reason.
It's true. Yeah, I coach in high school.
I don't think it's football. I think
No, it's competitive sports. It's wild out there.
That's what, this is interesting, because it sounds like you're trying to do the right.
We are. Well, and yes, more to come on that.
Yeah.
Come on that.
Good, yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice meeting you.
All right. Does anybody want to share their word?
Come on, Romeo. Yeah.
Great. And what's your name?
Romeo.
Romeo. And you're from Yale?
Yeah.
Great. Welcome. What was your word?
Patience.
Patience. And how did sport teach you that?
Because like you don't start off the best, so you have to take like a while to finally get good at it.
Yeah. That's a super hard lesson to learn sometimes, for sure. Anybody else?
I said determination.
Determination. Cool. And what's your name?
Oliver.
Oliver. Cool. And how does sport teach you that?
Well, it can vary, but with track, I run the 400, and that takes just, it's like 90% mental strength, and then physical, because if you don't push yourself and you don't have determination, you can just you'll just give up. Won't finish, and even with other sports, they can apply to them.
Yeah, I feel like too with the 400, it's like determination even when things are really hard.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Great. Anybody else? Time. Oh, cool. And how did sport teach you that?
I was saying in high school it was very much go to school, then you come home, and then practice, and then have to do homework. You just kind of have to keep on that schedule, and then it taught me in college to do the same thing, except sports was more involved in sports in college, and then it just taught me how to space my time out.
Yeah. And prioritize your day and make sure you're getting everything done. For sure. Awesome. Great. Anybody else?
I said.
Oh, great. What's your name? I saw that. I saw the hit. What's your name?
My name's Theodore.
Theodore. Okay.
I said work because if you don't have any place to pick up from, you just start a blank slate. You won't have much to work with. There's nothing there to prepare yourself. You can't grow at all. Because in the work, you can nitpick kind of what you did wrong, things that others could improve on, you could improve on, and eventually reach that end goal.
Yeah. There's all sorts of interesting reasons why the work of sport is super unique in helping us learn that, and I'm going to come back to that. So great segue. So here's how we talk about sports-based youth development. This idea. Has anybody heard that term before? In what context was it with me last year?
At school.
At school?
Yes.
And how was it used?
Very briefly.
Okay.
Yeah.
If somebody had to just sort of put it in our own words and guess what sports-based youth development means, what would that be? There's no wrong answers, just if you had to describe it to somebody right now. If you had to guess. Sure.
Developing through sports.
Totally, yeah, it's using sport as a tool for youth development. And I think that's a concept that we all can kind of understand, right? It's like, it's no question, and all of your words play this out, it's no question that sport can teach us really great life skills, right? Nobody when they were thinking about their one word was like, for you in the 400, you didn't say running, right? Or like, I didn't say like laying down a bun. Like, it's very rare for me to ask this question and people put sports skills on it, right? They're not like, the number one thing I learned from sport was how to shoot a free throw. They're gonna say it was determination, or it was that things take time and I have to trust the process, right? So sports-based youth development is just that. It's just understanding that actually the best thing that a person can get from sports is how to take some of these things into their lives and into other places. A lot of times, what happens when we talk about youth development through sport, it is assumed that we're not also talking about performance. So when we talk about youth development, a lot of people think, oh, we're just talking about like playing for fun. Or we're gonna take sort of this peak performance element out of it. And that's one of the big takeaways I would like you to walk away with today. So in order to sort of talk about that, can you all see that okay? Well, it's really janky. All right. So the way we talk about sports-based youth development is that you want to imagine a graph. And on each axis you have skills. Right? On the vertical axis we have life skills. These are the things you've already wonderfully explained. Right? Things that we can take with us and use into other spaces in our life, and things that young people can take into their adulthoods to be happier, healthier people. All right, so that's life skills on the vertical axis. On the horizontal axis, going from left to right, those are sports skills. Right, so that's shooting the free throw, all of the technical things that you learn through sports. If you sort of think about, there are different kinds of coaches, like different kinds, and you can even think about this with organizations or people. All right, so you have, if you're you don't care as much, and this is not that you don't care, but you care less about learning life skills and you care less about teaching sports skills, that typically is where we see most of our like rec programming. This is just like all we want. It's like open gym at the YMCA. It's like we just want an opportunity for kids to show up and play, and that's it, right? And that's super important, really important. They still serve a purpose in keeping kids safe. We know that after school was potentially the most dangerous place for young folks. So, but they're not necessarily, oh wow, look at that. That's way brighter than the actual projector. They're not in there coaching a skill, right? They're not in there, and they're not intentionally trying to get kids better at the sport or intentionally trying to have kids take things away, right? Just for rec. There are organizations who care more about life skills than they do about sports skills. So this is organizations or programs or coaches who use sport as like the hook, right? Like we're gonna play basketball, but you can't play basketball until you do tutoring. Or we're gonna do study hall and then basketball, right? And the reason that they do the sport is only as a pathway to these other life skills. Okay, does that make sense? The other end of the spectrum is probably one, if we've all played, is one as a coach we can consider in our own life. Right? This is a coach who really only cares about their kids getting better at the sport. The rest of it does not matter. Right? Maybe they say, oh, I know that sport teaches good life skills, but they don't teach any. Right? We are just focused on the sports skills. A sports-based youth development coach does both. So, a lot of times, folks think that actually in order to do sports-based youth development, you actually have to have more time. Or you have to sort of separate out the sports skills from the life skills. And we actually think it's more important to do both. So you are teaching sports skills, and you're teaching life skills at the same time. Does this make sense? Okay. Generally what happens right after we present this idea is that when we talk about competition, usually folks think that competition and youth development don't go hand in hand. So I'm gonna ask you to talk to each other again. Can we handle it? I think we can. All right, what I want you to do is I want you to think about the best game you've ever played in or seen. Actually, let's do this in 2 steps. The best game you've ever been a part of, either as a fan or as a player. The best game you've ever been a part of. I want you to stand up and find somebody new and tell the story of that game. Go. You can do it. I believe.
I got
What's up? So, best game you've ever been a part of.
Just because I'm
Oh, all right, tell me.
It's a game you can.
it's like family.
Oh, cool, nice.
I would say,
I'm so bad at this. Yeah.
The game is like started. It goes by game.
We started truly
Game.
Yeah,
So
okay.
we played down 2 games. Like the first and then they were just back and winning.
Yeah, well.
Oh, so you come back from behind. Nice, perfect. Thank you. All right, we're gonna do this one more time. I need you to find someone new and tell them about the best game you've ever seen. So it could have been something you like watched on TV. You didn't have to be part of it. The best game you ever saw. All right, go.
That one's hard. Oh, yeah. After his back.
The tip.
They had like tags set up.
Oh, you before that was Green Bay? Oh, Carolina. Oh, yeah, that's right. What made it so?
Just
That was crazy. Yeah.
it was so crazy outside.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah, I was downtown in Black game, but yeah, it was like a parade, you know.
I thought it was gonna
Yeah, time to get out of there.
That was pretty amazing.
That was amazing.
I think that most of the games that Steve and I had like hard time getting the ball back to the field. And like we got fine, I went to Washington State, but I had 3 probably.
You're like, we'll take it. Yeah.
There was one that was, I had graduated.
They went actually to
like the first.
I think it was close.
I just remember watching it on TV and being like, oh man. And of course the one year after I graduated, they started winning.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, this is so not fair, but yeah, it was really cool to watch and see out there. That was the greatest championship games.
Oh, really? Like very emotional.
Very emotional.
That's crazy.
That's awesome, yeah. As a fan, it was great.
No, that's awesome.
I felt like I was there on
Thanks.
TV.
That's awesome. All right. Go ahead and sit down. Anybody want to share one of their games? I heard a couple great ones.
I'll do mine for you.
Great.
I was telling them, it was the first NFC championship that Seattle won against Carolina. It was crazy. Just the whole experience was nuts. And I was saying to him, it was really outside the stadium that was nuts. It was just, I've never been part of the hysteria. I've seen it on TV,
Yeah.
but it was weird.
What remind me, and I can't recall the specifics on the game, but I know that like one of the things was that it was like the first time the Seahawks had gone in a long time, so everybody was excited. But
Yeah.
the game itself, I can't remember what happened in the game.
It pretty much dominated it all.
Yeah, that's right. right?
Yeah, which was, you know, football, so, you know, a male, you know, gorilla, you know, and it was kind of the machismo factor was really high that day.
It was like machismo plus height.
Plus alcohol.
Yeah. Okay,
If you
all
ever been to a
right.
Seahawk game, I don't drink, but I mean.
Yeah, they're wild.
It
There's a
is.
lot of hype.
Yeah.
People play, they deal with that in a lot of ways.
Yes, they do.
Cool. How about another one?
Well, I like kind of on the other end of like the aggression from football.
Yeah.
Like I was at a Husky game. They were playing Arizona, and I remember it was tight back and forth. And at the end, like Mason Foster got an interception off the guy's foot.
The shoe.
Yeah,
I remember
and like
that.
ran it back, and like I was just hugging people, you know, like random people that or people I'd sat next to for years.
Yeah.
And first time we've ever hugged, you know, because it was just we were so caught up in it. It was just that exciting to
Yeah.
kind of see it come out like that.
Yeah. We think about the games, so these two games are an example, but the other games that you heard when you were talking with one another, what were some of the things that all these games like had in common? What were some of the elements? Like what are some of the things that make great games? Like why do we choose to tell this story about this great game and not other games? What makes these games so great?
Well, emotion.
And for example, like what, you know, and then what makes them emotional? What elements exist in the game that make people so emotionally invested in them?
I think part of it has to do with seeing the players put all, like 110% effort in.
Yeah.
And almost like the nostalgia factor of being in that position previously.
Totally.
And then reliving it again.
Yeah, I think when you think back on great games, there's something about like really just like raised stakes. It's like and I think there were two things. It's like one, even more higher stakes than like a regular game. It's like these players are literally leaving everything out there, right? Because there's something really big on the line. And then there's also what I heard was just like a high level of skill, right? Watching somebody do something so crazy, it like blows our mind, even if it's semi-unintentional, like getting an interception off somebody's toe, right? And it's just like, you're just like, whoa, that was crazy. What else makes games great? I thought your example was interesting because I think when I think of great games, I think what made that game great was the hype around it.
Yeah.
But I think more often, we're talking about games that are close, right?
Yeah.
When we think about really good games.
Yeah.
Games that have like parity, right? Games where either it's like come from behind or it comes down to the wire, and those, I think, more than blowouts, although other factors that can play into it, those tend, I think, to be more the games we remember, like last second shots, like I said, come from behind, Hail Marys, tips, things that really come down to the last minute. What else like makes great games? The great games we remember and talk about forever.
I think the big part of it, though, is what you said about performance, too. Like, if you see someone do something that's never been done.
Yeah, so high level of skill,
Yeah.
performance, sort of parity coming down to the wire, some level of like storyline, right? Like there's some stakes, okay? What percentage of total games that we've seen, that you've all seen over your life, are great?
Very few.
Yeah. I was gonna say, are we talking, we're talking probably less than 50.
But that's why
We're
it's
talking
great.
less than 20.
It shouldn't happen all the time.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's one of the ways we also sort of get into this conversation about how to do youth sports, because we actually can list some of the reasons that these games are great. Parity, great storylines, high level of skill. And what we know is that kids are dropping out of sports because it's not fun. And that they're not getting enough great games. And so one of the things we talk to our coaches in our programs about is actually we need to figure out how to build in the experience of having great games more often with them. Why wouldn't we try and make youth sport games have more parity? Why wouldn't we try and build up games with great storylines and excitement like we do, when we see these great games in the pros? And that has to include competition. Competition is one of our biggest tools in order to help create great games. And kids play sport. Removing competition actually removes what I think is sort of the most powerful thing about why kids would choose to be in sport as opposed to doing something else. Right? It's this idea of doing something under pressure, which is really doesn't happen in the same way anywhere else.
But it's a great life skill, yeah.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. So when we think about competition, one of the things we talk to our coaches about is how competition and the brain are connected. So actually competition is just stress. It's just some level of stress because it's just performing under raised stakes. And we do a ton of research and talk a lot about how stress affects the brain because we think it's really important for our coaches to understand that and for organizations who are working in youth sports to understand that. But when we're talking about competition and sports-based youth development, one of the things that we actually push our coaches to think about is that hi there, how's it going? Is we actually need to consider competition as a skill. So we need to consider handling the kids being able to handle competition as a skill issue, not a will issue. When we talk about so first of all, do we do this right now? Generally in sports.
In youth sports?
In youth sports, do we consider the ability to handle competition a skill? No. Let's play out what happens because of that. We have a spectrum of sports skills on our team. And if I'm coaching baseball or softball, I'm always considering, okay, this person's not as good here, so I'm going to strategically give them opportunities to practice more often during practice, right? Like, okay, wow, so-and-so can't bunt. I need to make sure they get more practice bunting, right? This person, has a hard time throwing accurately. Okay, we need to work on throwing accuracy in practice. Okay, so as coaches and in sport in general, we are already attuned to think about sports skills in that way. How do I sort of work with the wide spectrum of skills that my kids have? What happens in competition is, let's play this out. The kids who are good at the skill of competition, do they play in games more or do they play in games less? They play in games more. So they have more practice over the course of a season for practicing the skill of competition. The kids who are on the lower end of the skill spectrum in competition, they play less or they play more? They play far less. Okay, so what happens is the skill gap actually just grows. All right, so the kids who need more practice get less of it. And the kids who already are either average or above average at it get more practice. This is different from the way a lot of youth sports coaches and youth sport programs think about competition, but the science tells us that's all it is. It's just a skill. It's the skill of being able to handle stress. And, like you said, it's actually one of the most important life skills a young person can take away from sports, is this ability to actually perform and handle higher stakes situations and stressful situations. So, if we know that this is true, and we now have established that kids who are naturally not as good at competition get less practice because they're not playing during what? They're not playing during games, right? And the kids who aren't actually good at it are playing more when it counts, right? During games. What are some things we could do to think about how to ensure all kids are working on this skill that might be different from the traditional youth sports coaching or youth sports program? How might this change the way we think about youth sports?
Well, then this might not be, not stressing winning so much.
So yeah, so I think there is an idea, there's something there about how we, and it might not be about stressing winning, because one of the things, again, is we're not trying to remove competition.
Yeah.
Because first of all, let's just play that out. It doesn't work. Kids who are competitive are going to stay, right? And even when we don't keep score, people keep score, right? So 9 times out of 10, 9.9 times out of 10, you try and remove competition, it doesn't work, okay? So then it's about reframing what success looks like, right? And no, you're not going to have every kid that's going to come in and be like, and be able to succeed on average in competition, just like you know, there's a wide spectrum of sports skills. So sure, it's thinking about how we reframe success and how actually we're talking about that to the kids, to our kids and to our coaches, right? And maybe we praise progress instead of praising the outcome, right? That's one, yeah. What else? You guys buy in this thing? Is competition is a skill?
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Well, creating more parity.
Yeah, creating, yeah, and then being intentional about how you create that parity, right? So you run track. Are you gonna be more likely to be pushed to run faster if there's somebody on your shoulder as opposed to you being off the front by yourself? Yeah, right? So parity actually helps us push towards peak performance. So how can, and we talk with sport organizations all the time about this, not just as coaching, but in organizations, how can we build structures to build parity into the youth sports experience so that, one, kids get better and they feel more motivated, but that they also just keep showing up because that's fun, right? I did a training with a Little League program a while ago, and I was talking to them about this, and they, one of the dads, it was like, I think they were like U11 or U12, and it's mostly parents, you know, it was baseball, so like mostly dads. And one of the dads raised his hand, and he was like, oh, we've started to do this. We call the opposing team on the day before, and we match up our pitchers. So we make sure that, because in baseball, you sort of you can have your 1, 2, 3 pitcher, and then particularly at that age, they still had kids who wanted to try out pitching. But if you have your ace pitch against somebody who's trying it out, then that it's usually a blowout, especially because of the way baseball is and how big of a role the pitcher plays, and also at that age, a good pitcher can basically just dominate the entire team, right? So they made sure, they're like, oh, are you gonna play your best pitcher? I'll play mine. Make sure that we're as aligned as possible, and we're eliminating blowouts as much as possible. And I loved that. It's a great example of it doesn't mess with the feelings of how competitive it is. It doesn't mess with any of the sort of our like deeply held values about what sport or baseball needs to be. It just makes it a better game, more likely to be a better game. Get that example. Let's see. Oh wow. Okay. There's just a couple minutes left. I have a lot more I can talk about on this, or what we do, or anything. And even just, you all are here probably, I think in large part for some of the career stuff. If it's helpful for you, for us to talk about that, we can just spend the next 3 minutes however you want. Yeah.
So when you are, like, let's say in charge of coaches, how do you start to change that mindset?
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time, especially with the coaches I work with,
Yes.
they've been doing this for a really long time, winning is the number one thing, or playing the most players for the entire team is the number one thing.
Yeah.
So how do you?
It's probably the hardest thing we do.
Yeah,
It's probably the hardest thing we do. Nobody goes into coaching because they don't think they know what they're doing, right? So, and like coaches are probably the toughest group to try and like change the way they're doing things.
That's big nicely.
Yeah, thank you, yes. So we start a lot by relying on science and research. We spend more time than most talking about how like the body and the brain work and how stress affects performance. And there's all sorts of research around stress and fine motor skills and stress and peripheral vision. And there's actually like, even for the coach who is like gung-ho about winning and making sure that their players are the best player ever, they have to either ignore the science or pay more attention to the way stress and competition land on their players. And my argument is actually that if you do this, you not only are going to make sure that your players have the potential to be healthier and happier adults in the future, but you're probably going to have a better team. Like, I think this stuff actually helps your team play better because of what we know about the science. And so what normally comes after that, which is it's just like, I don't have time. Like, I don't have time to do it, my practice is already crammed, and that's where this, like, we actually like doing it through the sports experience, not side by side, is really important. Like, it's not about adding extra minutes, it's about being more intentional with the minutes that you do have. And so we talk about like specific ways of giving praise and specific strategies for skill development that are just a little bit more high leverage in terms of helping kids take both sports skills and life skills with them. But we get tons of pushback, tons. I was just in LA last week, and it's hard. I mean, in no small part because the culture of sport allows us to treat people in ways that would basically be illegal outside of sport. And it says it's okay to yell at an 8-year-old, and we would never do that anywhere else. And people who were brought, people coach the way they were coached. And a lot of people have learned some really deep life skills through sport, and they equate that to how they were coached, even if it included like, semi-abuse. And we talk a ton about this idea of tough love and how and whether or not it works and who it works for and what that all means. And that stuff's really deep-seated and it's real, and it's a really hard conversation to have.
I would say, like what you're saying,
yeah.
Some of your, because I'm getting old, but as you get older, you forget a lot of things. But there are some things you'll never forget, and what you always remember if you play new sports is that one person could be you,
Yeah.
or an adult thing.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, for some people, that can define them.
And
that lasts for a long time.
And I think there's a lot of, we work in a lot of places where the coach is their only, that's their only attachment to an adult who spends time with them. And because they show up, because they show leadership, and because they're in this sport environment, there's a really tight attachment that happens between kids and coaches, for better or for worse. And our thing is that that's going to happen. Therefore, it's our responsibility to make sure it's as skill promoting as it possibly can be. It's hard because the culture of sports says that we can do a lot of things that we wouldn't be able to do with normal humans on the street. But it's tough.
Do you have a focused age group, or is it?
I would say most of our coaches work with like 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th graders.
Oh,
but,
okay.
But we do have a pretty full range. So we have some coaches working with younger folks, and then I would say maybe a third working in high school, more like 9th through 12th.
So you do work with school districts and schools?
For example, all of our coaches in New Orleans are in schools.
Oh.
Yeah. Something we're trying to do more out here. It just takes time to get in.
Sure.
Yeah. But it's not sport specific. I think at last count we had somewhere between 28 and 30 different sports. So just a full long list. Anything from the traditional sports to dance to squash to you name it. We've probably had a coach do it. None of our coach trainings are sport specific. They are all they all are found it in research and then very quickly get into actual like real coach strategies and applications. So I don't want to make y'all late. So I will stay as long as anybody wants to. We can chat as long as you want. But I do understand. There's probably something in here afterwards. Have you? Oh, okay, maybe so. Yeah. So we don't talk quote unquote X's and O's of sport at all, but we talk X's and O's of coaching. How to do better.
Yeah, and it's something that like just awareness of, no matter if somebody fully buys in or changes their strategy, but the awareness of it, it helps. Period. Just to say like, oh, I'm at practice yelling, to have the idea, maybe that's not always going to work, and it's like that just knowing that and kind of being made aware of some of the things that we talk about in our trainings, like it can change the direction of how people at least approach that responsibility.
Yeah, and some coaches, like sometimes we're only going to change them in the margins, but that like again, what we don't see is who's not there, and what we know is that kids quit because they don't have fun. And so a coach who comes to us and they say, well, I've been doing this for years and it seems to work, is like, that's great. And I can actually tell you that like there are little invisible kids who are not in your gym because what you did didn't work for them. And if we're actually trying to like keep more kids for longer because we know this stuff works, then it's something you've got to change. And I also understand some coaches are going to be like, that's not for me, and that's fine, but own it.
The irony is that if you're really into winning, you really want the best
want
players.
them. That's right.
But he might
That's
be
what I'm
sitting
saying.
over there.
That's right.
I think
Yeah.
Michael Jordan and Charles Barkley, those guys are great examples.
Yeah, got cut.
Yeah,
They
they
didn't
got
like
cut,
it. Yeah,
and you don't know who.
You don't know who's not there.
We have, and something drives me insane, especially with younger kids. Really, you have no idea what they're going to be like in 5 years.
Yeah.
Or
It's
a
great
year.
example. Yeah.
And they shut down. They're done.
Mm-hmm.
They're not coming back.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't either.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. So there's an argument for whatever kind of coach you want to be, whether or not you really want them to be there so that they can learn skills that are going to help them in their life, or whether or not you are really there to just, to try and make NBA players and get as many W's as possible. Like you want kids in your gym. So yeah.
Cool. Where I find the most difficulty is where
That's up.
I'm definitely a more research-based person, but I deal with people who are not, who are like, I've been myself in my whole life, this is what I have, and I've produced 1 or 2 kids who have been really great and gone on to do college sports, and for me, it's like, okay, but what about the other kids? Like, you've got all these other kids that you have to, it can't be just about that one kid, that 2 kids that you're going to produce, and kind of, so I think where I find the most difficulty is trying to find the balance between pushing really hard to be like, no, this is how you need to be teaching your students, and taking a step back and be like, this is not how you do it.
Yeah, I think the reality there is that at least in the places where we are primarily, which is very much less likely to be, like, these are not premier leagues. These are organizations who subsidize their sport experience so that kids who can't pay can go, and who are built specifically to like catch kids who wouldn't otherwise be able to participate. And the conversation we have is that kids who are with you, who are uber talented, they're going to be all right because somebody else, like, there's a program for them. If it's not with you, they're going to find themselves somewhere else probably. If they're truly, if the argument is, over my career, I've put two MLS players, like those 2 of the top 1% of the 1%, like they're going to get picked up by somebody else and they're going to be all right. What we are worried most about is the kids who, when they leave you, there's not another program for them, right? Like where are they going, and what are their options, and those kids don't have another option. And like, that is, that's gonna be the extreme. I think more coaches think they have that situation. Statistics say that they don't, because there's so few kids are going pro. But we have to have that conversation, which is like, if you're coaching a soccer program and it's for, it's soccer for success, or it's a program that's trying to catch kids that wouldn't have the opportunity elsewhere. Like, the kids who come in and are doing great and are dominating every day, like they probably should go. They probably should go somewhere else, right? And that's okay. Like, and you want, and who that kid looks like and who that is going to be, that's different for everybody. But it's a hard conversation, for sure. Like, we work a lot of times with organizations where it's like, if they're not with me, they're probably in the middle. Like, they don't have other things to do, and they will be out doing who knows what in between the hours of 1 p.m. event, whatever. So that's when we start. It's like, how do we just keep them with you? Because we know that that's going to be a better option for them. I think that's probably the hardest piece of content out of our entire training, because it's like, well, I have this one kid and here's my one situation. It's like, none of this, like, it's actually more of a framework than a menu. It's like, we're giving coaches tools and a way to think about things, and then we also can't be everything to everyone. Sports is great, but it's potentially not the be-all end-all for everybody. Cool. Well, yeah. Thanks for hanging. Thanks for sitting through and your questions and all that. I mean, again, I'll stay here. We can chat as much as you want. If you have questions about what we do, we usually have another training that'll be like March. It's a full day on healthy competition. We tend to have some openings for that. So if you know coaches or folks up in this area who would benefit or would be interested, here's my list. All these things. So those, you can really see it. But yeah.
I was just gonna ask if you have like a card or.
I don't have cards for mine because.
Okay. Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah, thanks.
You're talking about how you have to bring back your customers, right?
Yeah.
So my son
Coach is gonna coach, you know.
Yeah, my son works for a company called Adams.
Oh yeah, yeah. Cool.
And it's get a specific football coach to realize that you're doing it the wrong way.
Yeah, it's hard.
They
Yeah.
did.
No, coach, like I said, coaches don't get into coaching because they don't know, they don't think they know.
Oh, ego.
There's not a more stubborn group
Oh my God.
of people.
We have at least really hard.
It's also just, yeah, and again, it's like, this isn't, like, whatever your goal is, like, there's a better way to get to it.
Yeah. In youth sports is, because I've coached in youth sports with my kids, and the reason I coached, not because I couldn't wait to coach my kids, it was because I didn't let those people coach.
Yeah, I think that's fair. A lot of times.
And that's, it's scary.
Yeah, it's super scary. No, I know.
I'm sure you have stories, and
Oh.
I have stories, and you're just like, oh my God, why are you doing this?
Well, and I assume, like, people self-select in our training.
You guys.
Right, like, they're walking into a,
Is it in here?
I think they switched it to
Oh,
over
okay.
there, yeah. I know
Yeah,
there's
you guys
just
can
one
go to the
section.
women's one.
Yeah. Like, people self-select, they're
Go
already.
to the women. Did you just growl at women in sports?
No,
Get over there.
nothing one way to sit down. Look.
Yeah, the conference, go over there.
I try to get us to not move around because the brain and body is right. You learn better when you do.
We'll go have lunch after that.
Yeah, there we go. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a good rest of your day.
No, I mean, you're sitting here saying, this is one of the reasons I don't coach anymore, because it's become so much more about just winning at all costs.
Yep.
And I'm like, that's not what I'm here for.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I want to win,
Sure.
right? But winning's a byproduct there.
Yes. I think we talk a lot about how it's like youth sports doesn't, it's not a youth problem, it's an adult problem.
Oh, God.
Like, we need to fix ourselves because kids are showing up
Well,
with what we tell them to do.
I remember when my son was playing youth football, and they had they have so many kids in Thurston County playing football. It's just, first of all, too many. And second of all, well, the second graders should be playing that football.
Oh,
But,
shudder.
So
Yeah,
anyways.
we don't place coaches in tackle football programs.
Yeah, they should be playing tackle football.
We have a lot of flag football coaches, which is great.
And if you know anything about football,
So
it's
what's